And this mantra says, Om Vayura Neelam Amritam Athedam Bhasmantam Shariram Om Krato Smara Klibe Smara Kritam Smara. This is a profound mantra from Yajurveda, chapter 40, mantra 15, and stands at the heart of the Vedic understanding, Varisma understanding of death, destiny, and dignity. When it says Bhasmantam Shariram, it points to us that when the soul, Atma, has left this body, the fastest way to bring it, to return it to the 5 elements of matter is through Antyesti Sanskaar. Vayura Neelam, it says, my breath will merge into the immortal air all around. Bhasmantam Shariram, this body will turn to ashes, obviously incineration process of cremation. Krato Smara, Klibe Smara, Kritam Smara. We need to live a life with awareness where we are conscious about our deeds, because these are what will determine our next destination. And the cremation process is done in full dignity. So Vayura Neelam Mritam Mathedam, life is not annihilated there. The elements that comprise this body returns to the universal source matter. And understand death is transformation, not extinction. The body being temporary, the Atma not. So we have a moral responsibility here, because our actions shape our destiny, whether it's the next life or moksha mukti. So it calls on us to live a life with witness consciousness, mindful about our thoughts, words, and actions, because karma phal, the law of karma, will operate. Act with noble intentions. Choose kindness, integrity, and purpose. And this is what will be remembered out of us when we depart this world. And then let's find peace in letting go when someone near and dear to us has left us. The next mantra is also from Yajurveda and Rig Veda. It comes 3 times in the Veda. It says, Om Ashvatevo Nishadanam Parnevo Vasatishkrita Govhajet Kila Sathayat Sanavata Purusham. Pointing to us, life is like the leaves of the peepal tree, Ficus religiosa, ever trembling, never certain of the next moment. The slightest change in the wind speed will bring the leaves down. Otherwise, come fall season, they are all down. And this is the leaves that I put in the background. It reminds us this world is transitory. So our normal life span would be like the leaves coming fall season, they go down. And if any mishappening happens, like the storm, the leaves are down. It happens also in human life and all the other life forms. But if you want to understand it in a more subtle form, look at the dewdrops early morning. They dry out with sunrise. But on the tips of these same leaves, the slightest wind will bring the dewdrops to the ground. So we'll understand the transitory way of life. And there's one famous bhajan which is sung by Pathik Ji, interpreting this mantra. It says, Peepal ke patte upar tera thor ठिकाना है, तेरा ठोर ठिकाना है, क्या जाने किस वक्त टूट कर मिट मिट्टी में मिल जाना है, मिट्टी में मिल जाना है. So it translates the spirit of the mantra. The leaves also are there for some time. Our life is like this. The other mantra which we refer, unfortunately, we recite this mantra during when somebody has passed away, or when we are going to proceed with the cremation rites, Mahamrityunjay mantra. Unfortunately, we think that this is going to bring that departed soul unto moksha mukti. No, this is a mantra for those who are left alive. It says, Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukmiva Bandhanan Mrityurmukshiyamamritat. Tells us life is also like the kharbuja or the muskmelon. Comes when it's ripe, it detaches itself from the creeper. And if we live a life with detachment coming at the end of life, we'll be able to depart this world, leaving all the attachments behind. We'll be free to go there. And that's what it says. Bandhanat mrityur mukshiyam amritat, will strive to return to that moksha mukti. But when it says sugandhim pushti vardhanam, what's the fragrance we'll be living? It's the fragrance of our karma. And again, Bhajan Singh Patik has converted this into 2 lines. Paka hua kharbuja jaise swayam chhod de dali ko, aise hi tum chhod ke jana is duniya matwali ko. And the guidance come in one mantra which comes into the Swasti Vachan from the Rig Veda. Om Swasti Pantha Manucharema Surya Chandramasa Viva Punardadatatgnata Janata Sangame Mahi. Celebrating the life of departed. I use this mantra when I'm officiating at cremation, when people stand to do the eulogies. It guides us that this mortal frame is but matter, and we need to be just like the sun and the moon, consistent on their path, not deviate from dharma. And then when we leave this world, everybody will be crying, but we'll be having a smile on our face, though it's a dead body. And I've noticed that. Probably you also have noticed that. So what matters is when we are departing at the end of life, we have the satisfaction of having led a life to the best of our abilities. So we need to know about karma and karma phal, and about this cosmic order. And this cosmic order includes punarjanma, that is rebirth, and that process continues till we don't attain moksha mukti. Then remember the divine accountability. When we are leaving this earth, this planet, the only thing that will remain is will be answerable for our karma, and that is going to determine our next destination. So Arya Samaj, the practice is simple. Maharshi Dayananda Saraswati has restored the fundamentals using only Vedic mantras. There's no idol worship, no ancestral appeasement rituals, no elaborate ceremonies, emphasis on dignity, equality, rational spirituality. When I say no ancestral appeasement rituals, we see that very common, especially in Pitri Paksh. People think they are putting food aside and drinks aside, that the soul will come and partake of these. But the soul without the body cannot do anything, and the body without the soul cannot do anything. And the subtle body or the astral body, when this soul leaves this body, it lives with the astral body, withdrawing all the principles behind the senses, like the principle of sight behind our eyes, the principle of smell behind our nose, principle of hearing behind our ears, principle of taste behind our tongue, etc. The typical observance is when you've done the cremation, you do 3 days yajna using Swastivachan and Shantikaran mantras for the purification of the house. Now, people who say, okay, the person has died in the hospital, the cremation is in the funeral home, so where the house comes in. Remember, when doing the cremation somewhere else, there is some pollution happening. So we do it to also mitigate the pollution. So this Da Sanskaar reflects the fundamentals of the first mantra which I took, Pasmantam Shariram. Agni, fire, is the fastest way to return the body to its 5 elements. We've seen people doing the burial, and it takes years for this body, especially the last part, the bones, to disintegrate. And putrefaction occurs. And it happens at times when there are floods or the animals who have dug into, then that creates a mess. There's another process which some communities do. When the person is died, they bring it to the mountains for the vultures. That's also going to create putrefaction and everything there. So the dignity is not there. There's another process which is now common, resumeration, putting the body in alkali, letting it just melt down, and the leachate that comes, they'll dry it and use it as fertilizers, or they just use it as irrigation. There's a new process which has emerged. It's about composting of the body. But all these take time to return to matter. Anyway, people will say because you're using fire, you're using energy. But to produce these alkalis, or to produce the environment for the composting and accelerated composting, you're going to use more energy than you're going to use in an incinerator. Now, balancing off whether you're going to use a pyre or the incinerator in the modern days, I would say desh kal paristiti, place, time, and circumstances. It's better we use an incinerator because it's more, I would say, one, hygienic because you don't expose yourself to the ashes and everything. Second, it takes shorter time. And third, where do we get wood nowadays? We didn't plant trees. Previously, our forefathers were planting trees, and they identified, when I'm going to depart this world, this tree is going to be used for my cremation. And I'm talking from experience, which I've seen in Mauritius. Now, why do we use fire? Fire is a purifier. And the ghee and samagri which you are putting there, it will obviously evaporate and sublimate, that is, move directly from solid particles to gaseous form, especially the medicinal herbs that will help mitigate pollution as well as purify the environment. Then the question is, what about the proportion which Somedanand has indicated? If you're using a pyre, putting the equivalent of the body weight of samagri, because you're putting it gradually, but you're going into an incinerator, you put that amount of ghee, it's going to burn in 3-4 minutes, whereas the body will take probably 1 hour. So I would say you better use that ghee to do havan regularly. The reciting of mantras. People will say, okay, should we recite mantras? Remember, mantras, when we recite, they have vibrations. They tend to pacify our mind. They create an environment which is pacifying to people who are in grief. And also, people don't do the usual chit-chat around when you're doing the incineration. Now, about the ash collection, Maharishi Dayananda has written, it's usually done after 3 days, but now even if you use the pyre for the increase in population, the cremation ground is used more frequently, so you need to clear it. So usually now, as I said, place, time, and circumstances, we collect it the next day. And if you go to incinerators, funeral homes, they'll give you the ashes probably on the next day or the third day. They wait it to cool and they grind it so that when you bury it in soil, that becomes fertilizes. The process of immersing it in rivers creates pollution. And it's not prescribed in our texts. Now, period of mourning. There's no fixed ritualized period of mourning in the Antyesti and following the death of of anyone, according to the Vedas and Shastras. No, in the Upanishad, Darshan, Shastra, and everywhere. Grief is natural. That's why Maharishi Dhananda is advised to do 3 days Havan. So when you recite the mantras, it pacifies, and it says if you want to do Havan more than that, you can do it daily till you wish. So there's no mandatory ritual obligation. But remember, we do satsang, we do memorials. It's only to be able to thank all of those who shared the time with us when we were grieving. Practices rejected by Arya Samaj and Maharishi Dayananda Saraswati, which is not according to the teachings of the Vedas, Shrad, the ritual of appeasement of ancestors, Pindadan, people make foams with rice and other materials. This symbolizes the body and some put it in the casket, some leave it there for other animals to eat. No photo worship. Some communities do animal sacrifice. That is also not Vedic. There's no ghost appeasement. When we say pret, it's the dead body, and when we say bhoot, it's after the cremation, the body now no longer exists. There's no expensive rituals, no expensive priestly formalism. Usually nowadays people give a dakshina to the priest who's officiated the Antyesti Sanskaar. But remember, when the priest is officiating the Antyesti Sanskaar, he usually declines or take nominal sum or whatever is offered to him. But for other sanskar, okay, there's something which people think about what is reasonable or not. Even there, the concept of dakshina is not about asking. Yatha Shakti, that is, people give according to their means. Let's see now the doctrine. Rig Veda says, Prehi Prehi Patibhira Pitaraha Pareyu. The departed travel the same ancient path that our ancestors took when they departed. And if you go into Yajurved, chapter 39, the first mantra, it says that the soul transits 13 phases, which unfortunately in the Garuda Puran, it has been translated into 13 days. Ishwar, God, doesn't delay. And people put the question, and if you go in self-introspection and some deep contemplation on Yoga Shastra, it says, Sati mule tad vipakashaya jatir ayu bhoga. And the sanchit karma, the karmas which are outstanding, for which that person has not yet reaped the outcome. This is what is going to determine the birth. And jati here is the species, ayu is the lifespan, and bhoga is what is there for that species to eat, to drink, and everything. Then the karma indication is also in the Veda, chapter 10, subchapter 16, and it says, as per merit, we'll go into moksha mukti, we'll go into the cycle of birth and death. And we'll rejoin a body if we are not going to cycle of birth and death. And that body need not necessarily be the human body. If we've gone on improving our lot, we'll get a better birth in terms of, jisko kehte hai, dharmik sampan parivar, where we'll grow in dharma, but we'll go both materially and spiritually. And if we've done things wrong, obviously we'll go to lower species without demeaning other species. The Shatpat Brahman says it's just like the cycle of the moon. It goes to full moon and then it goes phase out and then full moon again, new moon to full moon. That's the cycle of birth and death. The Aryanyak, especially Taittiriya Aryanyak, it says liberation is through knowledge and karma. Because if you have only knowledge, no karma, that's bookish knowledge, and it's called bookworm. The Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, as one acts, so he or she becomes. So liberation is the process. When the mortal body is left, the immortal Atma, soul, remains in the eternal bliss of God, Ishvara. So the soul is eternal. When we go, now we look into Bhagavad Gita, I've looked into the practices which he does. Fortunately, this is what also we do here in US. We do some shlok part of the Bhagavad Gita which talks about life and death. And then we go to some Ved mantras which also explains life and death. We go to eulogies, and then we do the cremation rites. I don't know, Mauritius has picked the Tulsi Ramayan, which has nothing related to that. But when I analyze into it, I see, okay, when our ancestors came to Mauritius, the only book which came with them was the Ramayana. So they are stuck there. But they've not evolved in knowledge. How they evolved, they would have chosen probably Gita chapter 2, where Shri Krishna talks about the soul is never born, never dies. Na jayate mriyate va kadachina. And then in the next shlok, which he says, Vasansi jirnani yatha vihaya, as we change clothes, so the soul will change body. And the certainty of this cycle, jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu, death is certain for what is born, and rebirth is certain for what dies. So when we understand that, we'll know that death is only, as we say, a stop. The journey continues. And it's a new journey which continues. Then the shlok from chapter 4 of the Gita says, Tyaktva deham punar janma neiti, knowing the divine truth. Ishvara, God realization, that ends the cycle of birth and death. So when we understand that physical, subtle, and causal body, the physical body dissolves, the causal body carries the karmic seeds, and rebirth unfolds according to karma. And if we see, the Vedas give the knowledge in seminal or seed form, then Brahman Granthas, Aryanyak Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita details further into it. And the synthesis of what Arya Samaj does restores the Vedic clarity. Death is a transition to a new body of moksha mukti. The body returns to the elements. The soul carries karma. Liberation is the ultimate aim, that is moksha mukti. Ritual, simple, aligning with Vedic teachings. Simplicity is spiritual strength. So the element of dissolution, moral accountability, spiritual continuity, divine remembrance goes into that same spirit of Vayura Nilam Amritam Bathedam Basmantam Shariram. Now I'll go very quick on task. When somebody dies, what happens? Bathing of the body. Then we use turmeric, chandan, kasturi, kesar, and all the things, even ghee and til, which you use in South Africa, to maintain the sanctity of the dead body, so that external bacteria or my small particle, small creatures don't come and eat the body. If you look at the process of mummification in Egyptian civilization was a bit of the same thing using turmeric and other spices. When we do the Antyesti Sanskaar, the 5 first mantras are to get the fire blazing. That's where we put only ghee. And if the fire has not yet taken there, we better give a pause and continue to put some ghee and get it blazing, because next we'll be putting the ghee and the samagri. It's on the pyre. But if we are going to incinerator, what we do, we put everything on the dead body, reading the mantras, saying swaha, but not with the fire, and then push at the end of everything, push it into the incinerator. Desh, kal, paristiti, place, time, and circumstances. So one person has died, bathing the body, informing relatives and friends, gather materials needed for the Antyesti, arrangement with the funeral homes, and remember, I don't know, it's hard now to maintain because Maharishi Dayananda said, and according to the Vedic prescriptions, the head should be towards the north and the feet towards the south, or if we don't have alternatives, then the head towards the northeast or northwest. But funeral homes, they have their own arrangement. We have to do with it. Look at now the order of the sanskar from Garbhadhan till Sannyas, Diksha, Sanskar. It's all taking care of both the Atma, soul, and Sharir, the body. The Antyesti one is the one that caters for only the Sharir, the body. We call it Da Sanskar, Antyesti Sanskar, Antyesti Kriya, Da Kriya, or Narmeg, or Purushmeg. What is the difference between Sanskar and Kriya? Sanskar means the transformation. Kriya means practice or ritual. Why is called Sanskar specifically? Though there's no going into, no progress of the body, because it's only dealing with the dead body. It says, Sato Gunantaradhanam Sanskaraha. There's a change, a transformation in the gunas. So the gunas of the body, which is the gross element, in a body form, we transform it, we return what was to space, to air, to fire, energy, and to water, and what is left goes to prithvi, mitti, or the soil. इसलिए हमारे संस्कृति में जब किसी के मृत्यु हो गए, हम क्या कहते हैं, मिट्टी कब उठेगी. So we say, we refer to the dead body itself as mitti, that is, as the earth, as matter. We don't say, when my father will, we say, mati kab uthegi, that is, when that matter is going, we are going to lift it and bring it to the cremation grounds or funeral home. So this is the sanskar which prevents us to go into putrefaction, which can spread germs, bacteria, and diseases. And it doesn't, remember, burial also, people will say, no, it doesn't affect us, but the leachate goes and will affect underground water table. And that gives room for people to do kabra puja, tomb worship, like the majar and the other things which we see, dargah or kabra and everything. So when you've done the cremation and you've now buried the ashes, and that serves as fertilizer, and we usually recommend to people, you bury it and put a plant in it. Let the plant use it as fertilizer. It's a new way of, very dignified way of disposing of the ashes. Remember, even now, incinerators are becoming more and more common even in India. England, the Cremation Society of England recommended in 1974, and they had it by an act of parliament, that the remains are perfectly innocuous. They are not going to contaminate or spread new disease. it's going to pollute water if you put it in water. And the Cremation Act in England is since 1902. And I will just make a digression. Going into Mauritius, there's a place called Sipai Bwile. It means there was one of the Indian soldiers who came in contract. They were called the Sipai, yeah, from the word Sipahi in Hindi. And this was the first cremation that was done at that place. And that place has become known as Sipoi Bwile. So there's another question. We light the lamp. Should we put oil or ghee? I usually recommend to people to put ghee because ghee has a fragrance. Whatever happens, this dead body, once the person has died, it starts emitting its own odors. So when you light a lamp of ghee, it cuts those odors. If you have a very sensitive smell, you can just feel the change in the environment. Then it's always like there's no process of offering flowers and garlands to the deceased. But people do it. We say, okay, you are paying your respects to the departed. We don't want to just make that person go more into grief. We say, okay, do it, my dear. But there's no formal process or ritual for that. So remember, that body is just like the hardware. We have a computer. When it goes obsolete, we dispose of the hardware. But all the data or the work that we have done, we can transfer to another. All the software, all the program, all the things we can transfer to another hardware. And this is the same analogy as what happens between the soul and the body. The next one, we always suggest to people, give some daan to orphanage and needy, because when you start exercising some compassion towards the needy, your grief lows. And this is one of the reasons at the end of Antyesti Sanskaar, Maharishi Dayananda also recommends that. It has nothing to do that the soul will go into moksha mukti when you are giving the daan. It helps you atone your grief. There's another practice. It's queer. People, when they carry the body to the cremation ground in Mauritius, which I've seen, at each and every turn or corner, they will turn the casket around. Once I asked these people, why are you doing that? They said, no, that isn't written. I said, have you seen anybody returning from the cremation ground? Stop this nonsense, my dear. So let's use our logic. And if you want something, people usually sing Ram Nam Satya Hai, Ram Nam Satya Hai. From the Vedic point of view, I learned something when I was at Gurukul. Om Nam Satya Hai, Yah Sharir Anitya Hai. Om, God, is the eternal and is the first prime name of God. And this Sharir body is transient. And if we go like this, then you'll find mindset changes. Otherwise, just recite mantras. It's not going to that departed soul, but it just cools down, calm down the atmosphere. And the mantras in the Antyesti from the Rig Veda, it tells us about the transient feature of the body and the eternal aspect of the Atma soul. It's talking about also about the law of karma, which Ishwar God has set as the Rit, eternal laws. And then it's time also to remember when we are no longer in this earth, we are remembered only by our deeds. So there's that famous song of Mukesh, which is about now 45 years old, from Dharam Karam, which says, एक दिन बित जाएगा माटी के मोल, जग में रह जाएंगे प्यारे तेरे बोल. And then there's another line there. It says, कोई निशानी छोड़ फिर इस दुनिया से डोल. So that we'll be remembered by our kind words, our kind actions, and there will be the imprints we'll be leaving when we go that. Mantras from Atharva Veda there reminds us of Parmeshwar ki satta, that is the existence of God and the laws set by God in this universe. God as Srishti ka banane wala, generator or creator, chalane wala, which is the operator, the O in God, and sanhar karne wala, which brings pralay, which we say dissolver or destroyer of the universe. So let's create that peaceful environment when we go to Antyesti Sanskaar. At times it becomes odd what to say to these people. We usually tell people to say Om Satgati, praying for the peaceful transition of the soul to its next destination. Or Om Shanti, praying for peace. And remember, during COVID, there was another set which happened. Online services. I did quite a few of them. And there's nothing wrong in it. Because there's no fast and hard rule, Maharishi Dayananda himself has written, Desh, Kal, Paristiti, place, time, and circumstances. So, if we want to read mantras, we can read Ishwar Stuti, Pratana, Upasana. We can read mantras from Sastivachan, Shantikaran. We can do the bhajan. And then we can read mantras from Purush Sukta, from Yajurved chapter 31. We can read from Vedha Sukta chapter 32 of Yajurved, or Ishavasya Sukt, which is also the Ishopanishad chapter 40 of the Yajurved. We can read the Skambha Sukt or Kena Sukt from Atharva Ved, or Asyavamiya Sukt or Nasadiya Sukt or Hiranyagarbha Sukt from the Vedas. The only thing which we need to remember for those who boast about their own capabilities, put the question, when you are dead, can you walk to the cremation ground or the funeral home on your own? So we still need people there. So we don't need to live like as if we are one-man island, like in the story of Daniel Defoe, Robinson Crusoe. So we need to remember we are part and parcel of society. Now I'll just go into, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Does rebirth only take place on Earth, or rebirth can take place in some other universe? Yes, wherever the life can exist. Can Atma reincarnate in lower body? That I've already told you that. It's all up. Karma, you can grow and you can go down. It's a ladder. And at the time of death, when the Atma separates from the physical body, the waiting period, as per Vedas, there may be and not necessarily. Because when you go into the Darshan Shastra, it tells you God doesn't wait. Now people will say if there's no suitable body, there will still be karmas for this soul. So what Ishwar will do, make it transition in other life species just to pay off those karma and then get a better birth. Then does the Vedas or other scriptures say how long the soul? Okay, that has been answered. So I'll leave the floor now to the MC, and we'll see if there are any other questions.
Thank you, Acharya ji. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. I have to tell you, we have 64 people listening to you this evening. And I did say to you in my email that everyone is looking forward to listening to you tonight. I'm sure they have a lot more questions, but I don't know whether anyone who hasn't put it on the chat wants to ask a question at the moment.
So I've already taken what is on the chat.
What's on the chat? Yes, I've seen that. Yes. If
So
anyone else has to
you have
ask
an
a question, can you
international
raise your
audience
hand?
today? You have international audience today because I can recognize people from Canada and probably one or two persons from Mauritius, but the phone numbers are not identified. Or it's
And the first question that you read was a gentleman from New York.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Acharya ji, I just want to say to you, you've touched on the various methods of cremating a body. Recently, here in South Africa or in Durban, we've been faced with an ongoing dilemma of a shortage of crematoriums because many of the crematoriums, the cremators are not working. So as a result, funerals are sort of queuing up at one crematorium.
Yeah, like
Then
COVID, like the time of COVID.
There was talk of reintroducing the cremation on a pyre. My question here is, won't we then be adding more to the pollution?
Remember, if you're going to resort to the fire, you need to increase the amount of ghee and samagri that you're going to use to mitigate the pollution.
Okay. That's a good answer. Yes,
So
because there is talk about...
There are two questions there from the chat. Where should the ashes be buried and why should it be buried? You can bury it somewhere near the cremation ground, or you can even bury it in a place where it's safe and nobody will mess around with it. You look, usually in Japan nowadays, when you do the incineration, they give you a biodegradable pot. And they say, okay, you can bring it in your yard and put a plant in it. There's nothing wrong about it. Because that is prayed, because the body doesn't exist, the soul has gone. Then the second one is ghee work well with open fire. You will need ghee for electric fire. I would say we use some amount, but not the amount that we use on funeral pyre, because the incineration process, the first thing which is going to burn are the clothes and the ghee. So it doesn't have the same effect as you're burning on the fire, because when you're burning on the fire, you're putting the ghee on as and when you're saying the mantras, so it goes at a slower pace. Then, okay, the last one is compliments. Thank you for that.
Acharya ji, I have a quick question.
Yes.
In the Guyanese community, us from Guyana here in New York, some people I notice. Yeah, thank you, Acharya ji. Yes, Bharat. I notice some pandits, they will, when we do the Antyesti Kriya, they will offer the ghee while you do the Antyesti, they offer the ghee on the body. Some of them will burn it in the kund, and then they will wrap it all in like a paper towel when it's cool, and then put it in a corner in the box. But from what I heard you said, because some people don't want this ghee samagri until the end, when they're ready to close the casket, then they throw everything in different corners of the box. So what's your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you what I have been doing in Mauritius and what I do here. We read the mantras of the Antyesti. We give the ghee and samagri in nominal form, and at the end of it, then when we push into the incinerator, we go with the diya. The lamp also goes along with it. If you do it on a Sai Dhavan Kun, It doesn't go there. So it goes before you are doing the incineration process. In fact, it should be during the incineration process. But remember, incinerator acts so fast, and the temperature that goes, the first thing is that ghee and samagri will be burnt. Unless you want to do something which is very practical. You continue to do havan for that 1.5 hours, during which the incineration process is occurring. Which is hard to do because funeral homes won't allow you to do it.
Right, they don't allow you to do that. But the only thing, the thing is that
I remember I did it once in Canada. They allowed us to do it, and I did it.
Okay. The thing is here in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut and so on, where the thing that when in the incinerator, it's like an oven, so they push this box, so you can't throw anything in there, right? While it's being burned.
It's closed. The door is closed.
Yeah. So because we know, as I said, some pundits I noticed they will while they you have a viewing period, and while they do the Antyesti kriya, they'll put all the ghee samagri on the body. Some of us will offer it into the kund while it's born, and whatever is all, as I said, then they place it in the corner. But thank you, Acharyaji. One other thing you said, we can read from the Purush Sukta of which Ved? Rig Ved, you said?
It's chapter 31 in Yajurved, and chapter it's a longer chapter in the Rig Veda. I don't remember which chapter it is there, but it's both in the both Vedas. In the Rig Veda, it's longer than what it is in the Yajurveda.
Okay, good. Very good, Acharyaji. Thank you so much. This was indeed
Otherwise, a very, very enlightening. Upanishad, my dear.
Right. I mean, we do read from the Upanishad when we have the Jagran the night before. Some families will do that. But not on the actual Antyesti Kriya day. Yeah. That's when we read from the mantras from the Sanskaar Vidhi. Yeah. Very good. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, Acharyaji. Are there any more questions from anyone? Anybody needs to know something? Or comments, even if a comment?
So how do you feel about taking ashes to put in a locket chain? I wouldn't advise for that. So some people feel the near and dear one is still with you. But remember, ashes is only matter. I think it's better to carry the cherished memories, the good things that person did, and try to do 10 times better. That would be a more positive way. Like we say, Maharishi Dhanana has given it to us in the Sanskaar Vidhi. Putra Putri. Who is that who is eligible to call himself a Putra or Putri? Son and daughters. Those who do 10 times better the good deeds that were done by the parents. So just remember, I just probably, if there's no question, I'll just take 2 minutes more. Look at the bhajan that we sing. These are very inspiring bhajan also to be sung, especially when people are waiting, or some people do the wake. Om hai jeevan hamara. Om pranadhar hai. And there's one line which says, Ant mein yah om humko mukti tak pahunchayega. So it connects us to the reality. Then the mantra in Sandhyopasana Vidhi, which says Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So we know Mukti is only based on our Dharma. How far we follow Dharma and how far we follow Dharma in earning, Artha. How far we follow Dharma in Kama, in enjoyment. That is going to decide whether we are going to reach Moksha Mukti. Then there's another bhajan which is very interesting also. हुआ ध्यान में ईश्वर के जो मगन उसे कोई क्लेश लगा न रहा जब ध्यान की गंगा में नहाया तो मन में मैल जरा न रहा. I'm not a good singer of bhajan, so excuse me for that. Then there's another one. बेला अमृत गया आलसी सोरा बन भागा. The other line says, धर्म वेदों का न देखा बाला Bela amrit gaya na sambhala, sauda घाटे का कर हाथ माथे पर घर रोने लगा, साथी सारे जगे तो न जागा. And this is a very sad picture when we see people crying at the end of life because they know they messed around in life. So this bhajan reminds us of that. And there's another one which says, Bharosa kar tu Ishwar par, tujhe dhokha nahi hoga. So these are very beautiful bhajan, inspiring, and which lifts up the mood of people who are grieving or who gathered around during the cremation rites and just waiting for the cremation rites to start. These are things which will render people, uplift people mood, and then atone the grief.
Thank you, Acharyaji. Even here, like you mentioned earlier on, you used to read the Ramayana in Mauritius. Even here, we have a lot of people reading the Ramayana at funerals because that, like you said, that's the book that came with our forefathers. Yeah. So everyone knows about it and everyone's been studying it and reading it.
Yeah, but if you look at it, there's no relationship in between teachings of Ramayana and death. But if you want to go into something which really tells us about life and death, I think the Gita chapter 2 is more interesting.
The Gita is the best. Yes, true. All right. Thank you, Acharyaji. I think our program is coming to an end, but before I do that, our next
query that will that be available, the recording? Yes, the organizers of Arab in South Africa will be putting that on YouTube and sharing the link.
Yes, we will do that. Yes, thank you.
You need to wait probably for a day or two.
I want to thank everyone also for attending. Our next session will be on the 18th of March, and we have Pandit Uma Manogaran, who's going to address us on grief counseling. So, especially the Purohits and everyone else around us, everyone needs to know something about grief counseling, because not only during funerals, but at any other time, when people are really depressed and grieving.
Yeah, you touch a very sensitive part. We need to train our priests also as counselors at the end of life and post the funeral to sit down with the family and do some great
do some counseling. Yes. So
I've got here one last. Can we dispose of the ashes in running water? I mentioned that the high phosphorus and everything which is going to run into the water. So you better bury it, my dear.
All right. So what happens here is we have a ghat that's been erected by the Divine Life Society, and a lot of people take the ashes to the ghat, and it goes into this whole stream of water, which I think, and I'm saying this. You can correct. A lot of people can correct me if I'm wrong. It goes out into the river.
And goes to the sea.
Yes, it goes out into the river. So that's not good because that's polluting the rivers, like you said.
If you observed and you immerse the ashes in water, the fish and everything run away. So it kills life in the water.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Artiji, I just want to suggest the point that's brought up by Acharya Bramdeo today about us being environmentally sensitive about how we dispose of the remains of the dead. We need to pick it up in Arya Samaj South Africa, and I know Kiran Bhai is on, and we need to begin to look at it because we are saying that we want to bring an end to climate change and we want climate justice in place. So if we want climate justice in place, we've got to ensure that it becomes something that we are doing in all aspects of Arya Samaj work. And this point about how we dispose of the remains of the dead is quite important. because we are experiencing the effects of climate change right now, with floods, with droughts, with extreme heat. Thank you.
Karunaji, I would add one last word to what you said. Remember, we are going to end this session with the Shanti part. We are going to say, Dyav Shanti, Prithvi Shanti, Antarik Shanti, Apa Shanti, peace in the waters. And when you're polluting the waters, do you expect peace from them? So the slap of our wrongdoings towards these elements and praying for peace from them is climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Acharya-ji. We all going to close with Shanti Path, so please join me. Om Dhyav Shantirantariksham Shanti Prithvi Shantir Apaha Shantir Oshadaya Shanti Vanaspatayah Shantir Vishwe Devah Shantir Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantir Eva Shanti Sama Shantir Edhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste and thank you.
Everybody. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Acharya-ji. We will keep in touch with you.
Yeah.
And hope we can
when
get
the
you
link
back
is
soon.
ready, just please